On September 22, 2006, 16-year-old Cassie Jo Stoddart was staying at her aunt and uncle's house. She was house-sitting for the weekend, looking after the family dogs. It was a Friday, so with her aunt's permission, Cassie invited her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, over to watch a movie. The pair was later joined by two classmates, Draper and Torey Adamcik, but they got bored and left to go to a movie theater, leaving Cassie and Matt alone again. Shortly after their friends departed, one of the dogs started barking at the basement door. Then the power went out. After a few minutes, the lights came back on, but it still left Cassie feeling a bit scared. She asked Matt to stay with her overnight. Matt called his mom to ask for permission to stay with his girlfriend, but predictably, his mom said no, probably thinking Cassie's fear might just be an excuse for a teenage sleepover. However, when Matt explained the situation, his mom offered to let Cassie stay over at their house. Cassie declined. She had promised her aunt that she would take care of her house, and she intended to keep that promise. Around 10:30 that night, Matt's mom picked him up and he said goodnight to Cassie. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. On September 24th, Cassie's family came home from their vacation to a terrible discovery. Cassie had been attacked and murdered. Her body was lying in the living room covered in stab wounds. The scene was discovered by Cassie's 13-year-old cousin. There were no items missing from the house, which ruled out a burglary. Cassie had not been raped, and Cassie's friends and family were at a loss as to who would want to harm her. She wasn't the type to have enemies. She was confident, outgoing, and had a reputation as a kind and sweet girl. Police started by investigating Cassie's boyfriend, Matt. He had been the last one to see her alive, and romantic partners are often the perpetrators in violent attacks. Worse, when Matt heard the news of Cassie's death, he appeared to have no reaction at all. But Matt's alibi was solid. He had been picked up by his mom and gone straight home that night. His behavior before her body was discovered was unremarkable, though he had repeatedly tried to call Cassie and had expressed worry that she wasn't answering his calls or texts. Police were quickly forced to conclude that Matt was not a strong suspect and that his lack of reaction to the news of the murder was evidence of nothing more than extreme shock. So the police turned to the only two other people to have seen Cassie Jo Stoddart alive that night, her two friends, Draper and Torey Adamcik. Neither of the boys were particularly popular at school, but they had bonded over a shared love of pop culture and horror movies. They were good friends with Matt and both had crushes on Cassie in the past. Draper and Adamcik were often seen roaming the school with a video camera and told friends they were working on a horror movie. Their footage included video of Cassie.
Hey, look, it's Cassie.
Hey, look, I don't know.
Hello, Cassie. I'm getting you on tape, okay? Say hi, please. Hi. Okay, see ya.
When Draper and Adamcik were asked to account for their whereabouts that night, they told police that they had left Cassie's house and gone to see the movie Pulse at a local theater. However, when police asked Draper what the movie was about, he couldn't tell them a single thing about the plot. Neither could Adamcik. To be fair, Pulse has 11% on Rotten Tomatoes and has presumably been forgotten by everybody but a filled with regret Kristen Bell. But in our case, it's been 14 years, not a few days. On September 27, 2006, Draper cracked. He told investigators that he had been witness to Cassie's murder. Specifically, he said that his best friend, Torey Adamcik, killed Cassie as Draper watched, an unwilling observer. Torey Adamcik, hearing this story, was quick to confess as well. Except in his case, he claimed that it was Draper that had committed the crime, while Adamcik was the unwilling observer. From this point on in this story, I'm going to be a lot ruder than I usually am. I'm going to call these two teenage dum-dums a lot of rude names. You know, pint-sized perverts, wannabe psychos, dickless wonders, etc. Stick with me here, there's a reason for it.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah.
On the night of Cassie's murder, these two shit goblins had gone over to Cassie's and hung out with her and Matt. While there, they unlocked a back door for themselves. When they claimed to be going to the movie theater, they actually doubled back around the house and hid in the basement. There, they pulled on masks and gloves and turned off the breaker. The plan was to lure Cassie down to the basement, but neither she nor Matt made an appearance. They turned the lights back on and waited some more. Killing Cassie wasn't about revenge or anger for some particular slight. For some time now, Draper and Adamcik, or Turd Burglar 1 and Turd Burglar 2 as I like to call them, had been planning to murder someone. Cassie just happened to be the unlucky one out of many possibilities. How do we know this? They recorded themselves planning it.
September 22nd to 2006. We're skipping our 4th hour. We're not even planning right now. I can't push. I'm telling Cassie's family, but she had to be number one. We have to stick with the plan. And she's perfect, so she's gonna die.
Draper and Adamcik had actually identified up to 8 potential victims before Cassie. But every time they had shown up at a potential crime scene, they had found their intended targets had family home with them. Transcripts of their many videotapes show 2 boys obsessed with the idea of being famous serial killers. In transcripts released by the court, these obsessions become painfully clear. We'll find out if she has friends over, if she's going to be alone in a big dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude. I'm horny just thinking about it. We're gonna go down in history. We're gonna be just like Scream, except real life terms. That sounds good, baby. We're gonna be murderers, like, let's see, Ted Bundy, like the Hillside Strangler. No, the Zodiac Killer. These people were more amateurs compared to what we're going to be. We're gonna be more of higher sources of Ed Gein. First of all, Ed Gein got caught, you abominable pickleheads. Second of all, you aren't dark, disturbed geniuses. You didn't even think to look up the plot of your Alibi movie. Anyway, after hiding in the basement for some time, waiting for Cassie to come down, Draper and Adamcik finally gave up on their plan and went upstairs. They stabbed Cassie 30 times. 12 of those wounds were later identified as being potentially fatal. The murder was recorded on videotape, as was this conversation in the car afterwards.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like fucking real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
This video, along with many others, proved to be the boys' undoing, though both turned on each other in an effort to save themselves. Draper told investigators that Adamcik was the one who stabbed Cassie. He eventually changed his story to admit that he had participated, but only when Adamcik forced him into doing so. Adamcik, on the other hand, claimed that the whole thing was Draper's idea and that he just thought they were just making a movie. I seriously doubt either of these stories would have worked on the cops, even if these 2 insecure chowderheads from hell had not recorded themselves planning and confessing to the crime. Stab wounds on Cassie's body indicated 2 different murder weapons, and Draper guided police to a stash of evidence that included knives, masks, and gloves. The boys had attempted to burn the evidence, but sucked even in this area of their lives. DNA was still found on the knives and masks. Both of these illiterate dingleberries were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Their defenses mainly consisted of blaming each other. Draper's lawyer claimed that the police were at fault because they hadn't kept looking for other suspects after finding Draper and Adamcik. which is like, yeah, duh. If I found video evidence of the murderers planning the crime and then they confessed to it, I'd stop looking too. During their trials, it came out that the boys were inspired by the Columbine shooters as well as popular horror movies like Scream. Brian was convicted on April 17, 2007, while Torey was convicted on June 8, 2007. On August 21st, they were both sentenced to life in prison without the possibility for parole for the charge of first-degree murder. In addition, for conspiracy to commit murder, they have both been given a 30-year-to-life sentence. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences without parole is unconstitutional for minors, even if they have been convicted of murder. This is in part due to the fact that our brains are still unformed as teenagers, and a juvenile offender may grow up to be a very different person than they were at the time of their offense. This ruling may be applied retroactively, but it does not guarantee that Draper and Adamcik will ever be able to get their sentences changed. So far, they are still looking at life in prison. Cassie Jo Stoddart died a terrible, unfair death at the hands of two acne-riddled hobgoblins who claimed to be her friends. I have to confess, we here at Beyond Crime had some hesitations about telling this story. After all, Brian Draper and Torey Adamcik wanted fame. They liked the idea of being known, as they said in one of their videos, as sick psychopaths. They wanted to be talked about with horrified fascination. So, in the name of Cassie Jo Stoddart, who died far too young and far too violently, please join me in denying her killers the pleasure of that kind of fame. Don't call them psychopaths or twisted or even murderers. Join me and call them what they really are. Idiots, losers, posers, freaks. Most of all, they are posers. You aren't cool, guys. You aren't even really that interesting. And that's all the time we're willing to give you. Thanks for watching Beyond Crime. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support more true crime content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to let us know what you thought of this case.